Imagine this. You walk into your favorite local game store, probably for some trading cards, and you stumble upon a wall of retro video games. Nintendo cartridges, maybe some Sega Genesis stuff, maybe some Dreamcast if you're really lucky, PlayStation 2, maybe some PlayStation 1, and your favorite local game store, this third space, now has an additional option in this retro field. My name is Travis. I own stores in Southern California, primarily focused on the trading card space. And about 10 years ago, I was in a different situation. In 2014, I was selling used video games out of my apartment and flipping those, going to garage sales and Goodwills and kind of doing the flipping, hustling scene. I was testing, repairing consoles, repairing cartridges, and that was really part of the entrepreneurial lessons, the entrepreneurial school, if you will, of the streets, was in the retro video game scene. And now, fast forward to 10 years ahead of that, my business is in primarily trading card games. We do miniatures, we do miniature like wargaming, we do D&D, and we have board games. I think I said board games already, but primary focus is on trading card games: Magic, Pokemon, Flesh and Blood, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, Lorcana. Just there's like 11 or 12 that we're supporting, and that's our core competency is in TCGs. But in my 10th year in this industry, I'm looking at growing and how to stay compelling and keep providing compelling offerings for not only for our customers but for our staff, and to really challenge them in ways for us to grow. And I have a new theory, and we'll call it a hybrid theory. And I want to see how much further down this rabbit hole I can go, and I need some help. So I need some help from our community. Curious to see what you think of this idea. I might be looking at this through some like old nostalgia glasses. The old nostalgia goggles might be coming on, and part of it is I think physical media is something that has grown a lot in the last 10 years, especially the last 4 years in a post-COVID environment. And the collecting, not only just from a collecting physical media standpoint, but people preferring to own physical media instead of digital streaming services. It seems like there's, kind of like when I got into Magic 10 years ago, it seems like there's more here than meets the eye on surface level when it comes to the collecting and hunting and acquiring physical media, whether it's books or records or DVDs or Blu-rays or video games. Then I was really aware. I wasn't aware of how much momentum those hobbies have gained. So, a little quick history lesson. So I left video games back 10 years ago to open a comic book store to really get access to product to sell online in this e-commerce business. My model was all e-com. I wasn't doing retail originally, and that transitioned into TCGs really quickly as soon as we went retail. And we've kind of over the years tested different product categories or expanded completely into them, like we have with miniatures, for example, for primarily Warhammer. And now, as we're growing in new stores and new product categories, and we need to keep growing, revisiting video games is a little bit more compelling now. Why are we looking at this now? One, it's my primary responsibility to grow the company as the owner and provide compelling growth. But I think there is this physical media resurgence that's happened over the last decade that will continue to grow. There's so many cool old consoles like PSP and Vita and Game Boy and the Game Boy Advance. What does this look like? Kingslayer stores our stores are pretty low footprint. We're working on expanding our Fountain Valley location in 2025, maybe towards the end of the year. But just throwing in a big mess of cartridges and discs and repair stations. That doesn't really fit in our model that well. So we have to have somewhat of an elegant rollout, whether that's going to be new games or just buying old games and having a small section of that. How we roll that out, I'm still building a game plan for that. If we are going to explore into this sector, it'll probably start with a buying season. So where we have a buy rate or buy list for used video games and consoles, and we put those rates on Discord and put those on the website, and folks can see what we're paying. And there's going to be challenges. I remember, repairing controllers, repairing consoles, scratch discs, and resurfacing them. there's going to be issues and challenges and like new supply chain opportunities for us to explore. But I think it's something that, I grew up playing video games my whole life, as many of the people watching this video did, and they're something that's really, from a nostalgia collecting standpoint, I think is really fun. But it's also nice to kind of pick up an old console that you haven't played in a long time and play a title that you haven't seen in 20 years, and seeing that flash up on the screen, it does something to like the core of who you are, to relive and see some of those frames that you used to see when you were a kid, and that's so relatable to TCGs. Like the reason why people collect Pokemon cards a lot of times is because they are reassembling collections of their past, and that's so true with all forms of physical media, especially with these different resurgences into collecting DVD collections, or even VHS. Or I even saw on some of my like research that I'm doing that people are putting collecting old PC games. I'm like, those were always trash and worthless because you converted that to like an install file. But people are collecting old box arts of old copies of games. So it's the collecting side we understand with, we relate to, and we know. One thing we've learned how to do really well is build communities at Kingslayer over a long period of time, and building communities in retro gaming and in some modern video game applications is really interesting and really compelling. And I got to see some numbers of what stores are doing across the country through some of these discovery calls I've had, and it could add a ton of growth for our internal staff. Like our team and the number of locations and the way that we service our communities could radically change. And that's my question for you, for our community members that play games at our stores right now. What does that sound like? Imagine having being able to trade in your old games that might be sitting in the attic, to trade that in for store credit for TCG stuff. Would you show up to like a Switch night, like a Nintendo Switch night, or a retro night, if we were to bust out like old CRTs and like play all, like Atari and NES and Super Nintendo games? Obviously there's like Smash tournaments or other more modern tournaments. Like we already are an organized play store for Pokemon, so we could do the video game tournaments for Pokemon, like the modern ones on Switch, and since we already have that network built. What does that look like? We've always avoided that. It's come up before. People ask like, "Oh, do you have?" We get phone calls all the time to ask for like, "Do you have these controllers or these games or this title?" And we always say, "No, we don't do video games. We don't do video games." And part of doing TCGs and how we've done them so far is we've been able to say things like, "Oh no, we unplug here. We unplug, and we're all about that like physical, in the flesh and blood, so to speak." And I think there is something contradictory about that, when we're like, oh yeah, we're all about that in-person TCG gaming, but when the reality is we're like, oh, but we also sell like the most recent Call of Duty game or something like that's like, it's like, okay, cool. So you guys kind of do. I think we're just kind of servicing people that want to engage with their hobbies however they want to, and instead of buying something at a GameStop or a big box store, if you have the option to spend it at your LGS. And keep that business local. Like I think there's something cool about that for supporting local folks that have the folks that are working behind the counter at your local game stores. I think it's kind of cool to be able to support that in a more local setting than the big box way. So what do you think? Let me know. You can send me a message on Discord. You got links to that down below. Comment on this video. What do you think about Kingslayer doing retro video games? We're also looking at going back into sports again in a capacity. We did a lot of that in 2023 and not so much in 2024. But looking at the sports trading card industry is changing quite a bit, so we're going to interface with that to a degree. But also just some of the other product categories like toys and plush and all that those adjacent categories that are more maybe something you would normally see at a video game store. And some of those product categories making their way into Kingslayer. What does that look like? Does it feel like you lose part of the soul of the LGS, the local game store, when it's cards only, when we're like kind of pure cards? And if you look back in time, we used to be Magic only, and we did a lot of competitive Magic, and that shifted into being, hey, we're going to do 10 different TCGs, not just comp Magic. So that was a tough change for some folks too. Like we changed who we were when we decided to cater to 10 games instead of one or two. So if we add another product category to support and supplement some other hobbies that are adjacent, what does that look like? What does that feel like? How would that change the vibe in the room? Let me know what you want to see. And I think it'd be a lot of fun. I mean, doing like a retro game night where we pull out the old CRT TVs and just kind of hang out and play video games. Like that could be a fun, monthly thing in the shop. So let me know what you think down below. I appreciate you checking this out. I haven't posted a video on YouTube in a minute, and I have some attendance videos to post and a lot of other stuff. But I've been doing a lot of live content this year and focusing on growth and other areas. So, but yeah, looking forward to hearing the responses. Thanks for watching to the end, and we'll see you next time.